is my first visit to an NOSB meeting, and while I'm a member of several organic farmer organizations and support the recommendations to the NOSB, I feel it's important for the board to hear personal comments from individuals. My goal for the meeting is to attend, watch the process take place, participate in the process, and decide if the open producer position is something I should pursue in the future. Our family's organic dairy farm is in south central Ohio, just south of Columbus, where we milk about 150 crossbred cows on 430 acres of grass. My family has been at this farm since 1899, and we began participating in the program in 2007. I concur with the eloquent description of the problems with materials, vitamins, and nutrients, Sunset, described by Deputy Secretary Merrigan, and appreciate the compromise and path forward laid out by Deputy Administrator McAvoy in his subsequent speech. As a livestock producer, I would also like to express concerns I have with livestock living conditions. Specifically, farmers should have the ability to size free stalls and tie stalls specifically for individual herds and cows, one stall, one cow. Incorrectly sized stalls are detrimental to livestock welfare. It's appropriate that loose housing and bedded pack barns should conform with the chart at the end of that section. Having access to feed simultaneously during the grazing season is not an animal welfare concern. What is of concern is that all cattle maintain good body condition. Organic inspectors will be checking body condition scores to verify adequate diet, therefore space and competition are not issues for cattle with good body condition scores. Thank you for the consideration, and I appreciate the valuable work that NOSB does for the program.
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Corot, and I'm a former chair of the NOSB. And it's a pleasure to see a lot of my good friends here. First, a short comment. I support the Handling Committee's recommendation to allow fortification of organic food with what I will call FDA-approved materials. I have always believed that the board should approve fortification materials as a category and do so in a manner that conforms to FDA's judgments, just as we've done in the past with other materials that are listed on the national list. However, the inclusion of 10420 was a mistake. It was never any part of the recommendation from the NOSB and should not have been added. I agree that postponing the decision to allow for greater input and gathering the information about fortification products consumers would want is helpful, particularly in the areas of infant and toddler products. My comment is more of a question, and it is posed to the NOP, because I don't understand the rush to judgment on this important topic. Let me be brief. Harvey. In 2005, the First Circuit Court of Appeals declared that synthetic materials in processed organic foods were not authorized by the OFPA. The USDA responded, exercising enforcement discretion, while the industry debated the eventually obtained a change in the statute to correct the OFPA. That took nearly a year to do, and during that time, USDA obviously did not remove products from the shelves despite the court ruling. Based on this precedence, it seems clear that the USDA can allow the debate to continue and fix this deeply flawed annotation once and for all. So my question is, if the board votes in the fall and the NOP can't get the simple rulemaking done before the sunset of this material, would NOP remove products and exercise its enforcement discretion like it has in similar situations in the past? Thank you.
With regard to the last example you gave, the 2005 decision, was USDA directed by that court decision to not have a transition period?
From my understanding, the First Circuit Court of Appeals decision did not allow for that did not designate an enforcement time frame.
That was not my understanding, but I'm not an expert.
If the program wants to respond.
Maybe the program has. I don't, though. I thought that.
Sir, use your microphone.
Okay.
I don't know if the program wants to address that. I'm not an expert in that, but it was my understanding that there was always the intention on the part of the litigants as well as on the part of USDA to have a orderly transition.
I see Miles reaching for his microphone, so let's recognize Miles McAvoy.
I'm not familiar with what happened in 2005 in terms of whether or not the program used regulatory discretion. If it did use regulatory discretion, I'm not familiar with the details of that or the court decision to really have anything to add to the conversation at this point. It is a good question, however, of whether or not that could be looked at in regards to this issue as we move forward in the next couple of years.
If I can just respond to that, my concern is moving quickly and making the wrong decision instead of moving with caution and making the right decision and allowing for discretion that, obviously is there based on the decision that was made in 2005.
My name is Andrew Waterhouse. I'm a wine chemist and professor and chair of the Department of Viticulture and Enology at UC Davis. Our wine program is considered perhaps to be the best in the world. Sulfites are a very simple product made by taking elemental yellow sulfur powder, the same stuff that's sprayed on organic crops, and burning it. The simple process has been used for hundreds or thousands of years, and the traditional practice of burning sulfur candles in barrels continues up to today and includes the makers of biodynamic wine and even organic wine in many countries outside the U.S. At UC Davis, we don't give our students recipes on how to make wine, but we do inform them about the risks of certain practices. Sulfites are used to reduce or eliminate the risk of unwanted yeast and lactic acid bacteria, microbes normally associated with cheese, kimchi, pickle, or yogurt fermentations, and the aromas of those foods. Sulfites also reduce problems from oxidation that would make a wine taste like nuts, sherry, or cooked vegetables. Today, these problems and these defects are never found in commercial wines, but I've easily found consumer comments on organic wines that could be linked directly back to the faults I mentioned, including references to other fermented foods and combinations with oxidation. Without sulfites, wine is extremely perishable and should be refrigerated for its entire one-year life cycle between harvests and then from the winery to consumer. Unfortunately, this is impossible in today's national wine distribution system. So, wine made without sulfites, especially the white wines, continue to show very serious flaws. I'm convinced that these persistent flaws are the reason the organic wine market is minuscule today and will continue to be so. On the health front, sulfite labeling has eliminated the public danger of sulfite use, but some wine drinkers still have allergies, allergic reactions, and asthmatic reaction to wine. The latest medical research by scientists studying sensitive asthmatic patients is now calling into question whether sulfites are the cause of these reactions. Some exciting new papers have suggested alternative hypotheses, including the presence of wasp or bee venom, as published in the New England Journal of Medicine, or that wine grapes might have allergenic components themselves. At this point, it's clear that more work is needed to find the actual cause of the allergic reactions to wine. In closing, I wanted to say that while investigating organic wine, I was surprised to see that a number of websites, including the world's largest website, snooth.com, and my local Davis Food Co-op, a bastion of organic food, are now using the term organic wine to classify mostly, if not all, wines that actually lack the USDA organic wine label. It seems to me, though I'm no expert in market analysis, that the market is rapidly abandoning the term as defined by this board, perhaps because it is too restrictive to be useful. Thank you.
And Holly Bourne is standing by.
My name is Jenneke de Jong, and I want to say first off that I appreciate the work it took to develop all the recommendations, and I know you will, and already have, listened to the public input before making any final votes. My husband Ari and our 5 children milk organic dairy cows on our farm in Bonanza, Oregon. We became certified in 2004. I just completed a 6-year term on the OMRI Board of Directors, on which I served as board chair for 2 years. While making the transition to organic farming, we took understanding the regulations very seriously. We wanted to really know what we were embarking on before we jumped in. Organic farming is more than just a business venture to us. It is a way of life. Today, I wanted to comment on the animal welfare stocking density recommendation. I believe it is important for the organic regulations to have some rules in place for the welfare of our livestock. My concern is not around the intent of the document, but in some of the particular requirements. In one section of the recommendation, the committee suggests that livestock should always be on soil during the grazing season. During the grazing season, cattle are let out to open dirt corrals and pastures for grazing. Along with fresh water, cattle do need supplemental feed and additional care and attention. Cattle use places to congregate, and clean concrete is much better than wet or dirty ground. Grade A dairy inspectors want to see cattle clean and dry with good conditions for animals. Cows must be milked on smooth and cleanable surfaces. It is easier for cattle to walk or stand on flat concrete than through dirt or mud. I also was surprised to see the bedded square footage for dairy cattle being a minimum of 50 square feet of bedded space. Our barn is a freestall barn, and earlier today we had some confusion about what a freestall barn was, and I highly recommend that you familiarize yourself with what that is before you vote. Anyways, we have a freestall barn. Cattle need a soft, dry, and controlled place to lie down. Cows are cleaner and healthier in smaller, controlled areas than in a larger area where they lay in their own manure. Cattle need plenty of room, and without good animal husbandry, people could not survive in this business. On the other hand, the beds in our freestall barn are 4 by 8 feet, which is 32 square feet, and any more room, the cattle can get partly turned around and they can get stuck. In closing, I would like to say that I strongly agree with the recommendations made by the food farmers, and Ed Mulby said that it was 20 pages, but they're very good written. Their concerns regarding the current regulatory processes and regarding the economic impact on organic farmers of any changes in the regulations are valid and real. Without the organic farmer, there are no organic products to sell. Thank you very much for your time.
Go ahead,
Thanks.
Holly.
I'm Holly Bourne with the Midwest Organic Services Association, and today we'd really like to encourage you to incorporate the changes to the proposed animal welfare recommendations that we detailed in our written comments so that a workable recommendation can be produced by the end of this meeting. If some aspects are considered to be too species-specific or subject to debate, we'd like to encourage you to address these aspects in the species-specific guidance documents that are going to be developed this fall. And I've actually given you copies of a sheep guidance document, which is developed by our director, Bonnie Weidman, as an example of how this might be done. Our two main areas of concern with this proposed recommendation are outdoor access in soil and stocking rates. We don't think that outdoor access must always provide animals contact with the soil. Ruminants are on pasture during grazing season, but in non-grazing season, we see that concrete-based lots, yards, and so on are important in preventing erosion and runoff of wastes. We don't think hogs necessarily need to be on soil as long as they have enough material to root in. We do think that poultry should have contact with soil, but that soil shouldn't be expected to grow pasture. We also think that stocking rates for hogs should be increased to be closer to the Canadian requirements. Stocking rates for sheep and goats should be consistent with American sheep industry recommendations. Stocking rates for laying hens should be increased consistent with the ACA recommendations. Finally, we think the proposed livestock transport, handling, and slaughter recommendations should be withdrawn and revised. In particular, we think that welfare audits of slaughter plants should be covered under existing regulations and not duplicated by certifiers. However, since poultry is not covered under the Humane Slaughter Act, we would like to see humane poultry slaughter audit criteria defined for use by certifiers at plants that are not animal welfare certified. Finally, we also don't think that livestock haulers should need to be certified.
My name is Tony Shelter, and I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to everybody's comments today. My dairy farm is in Chehalis, Washington, which is about 90 miles south on I-5 from here, and We're a family operation with my wife and my son as a full-time partnership, milking 250 cows, and we have about 250 heifers. Beside that, we farm about 450 acres. And we're proud to be organic since 2007. I also sit on the Western Organics Dairy Producers Alliance Board. And two portions of the animal welfare recommendations concerns me enough to make the drive out here to speak to you in person. During the grazing season, we send our cows out, weather permitting, whenever possible, but we also get about 30 inches and 35 inches of rainfall a year. That rainfall happens between November and March and sometimes carries into April. 28 to 29 inches through that period of time, and the other 5 inches continues on for the rest of the remainder of the year. When the ground is saturated in rainwater, we send our animals out on our cement exercise run that is available to the animals year-round. It's optional whether they use it or not. But when it's raining, they're locked into that exercise yard. This recommendation says that the cows need to be on soil during the grazing season. It is actually simply inhuman treatment during these rainy times, and I suggest the board evaluate all regulations of the country before making a blanket recommendation. My other concern is the 50 square feet of bedding space in the barn, which you've heard numerous times today, where my stalls are 32 square feet per cow. The exercise yard gives those cows an additional 83 square feet per cows for plus 100 square feet per animal year-round. And when they're out in the field, they got numerous amount of square foot. But I don't think it makes sense to measure the whole barn and divide it by the number of cows to get the bedding space. I think the word should be changed so that the free stalls and the tie stall barns must be 1 cow per stall. I'd like to comment too on both the crop and the handling sunset materials. As for the sunsetting of nutrient, vitamins, and minerals, I'd like to see those materials already being used in an organic process to continue to be allowed. I agree that the review of these materials should be done to take them through the proper federal registration process, and I also think that these materials should continue to be allowed while the petition process takes place. Taking these fortified products all to the store shelves could affect farmers' livelihood, and for one, I don't want to see a reduction in my paycheck.
Thank you, Mr. Schulter. That was your 3 minutes.
I also want to just to put a little comment in is that we believe we're proud to be organic, and happy cows make happy milks make happy customers, and if we're all organic in the same process, we're all going to be happy.
Hello, my name is Paul Staley. I have been farming organically in Oregon City, Oregon since 2002. I'm also a member of WADPA, and I thank you for allowing me to speak today. There are several sections throughout our animal welfare document that need clarification, specifically stocking density and the access to outdoor requirements. Some of our outdoor access is cement and some of it is soil. For example, in our holding pen, it is cement. In reading the recommendations, it sounds like all outdoor access needs to be soil. We get approximately 3 feet of rain in the wintertime, making outdoor areas extremely muddy. Sending cows out on the mud is dangerous to both cows and people, not to mention my milk inspector wouldn't be happy to see the cows out on the mud, and it's not a very easy cleanable surface. As for stocking density, inside the barn we have free stalls with 32 square feet per animal. To get 50 square feet per cow, I would have to take out every other stall. The cows would have so much space they would be up standing sideways in the stalls, causing yet another cleanliness and safety issue. I think the comfort of the animals and cleanliness of the space is more important than having exactly 50 square feet per animal. I strongly suggest the board reconsider the wording of this chart to reflect this, and maybe acknowledge free stall barns that have beds for all cows but the beds aren't 50 square feet. As for crop materials, I would like to see the continued listing of chlorine, alcohol, and pheromones. And on a final note, I would like to see fortified foods continue to be allowed in organic products, providing those nutrients go through the Federal Register process, just like everything else on the national list. To keep business flowing smoothly and to allow organic farmers to keep selling their milk, please do pull fortified foods from the marketplace. Give companies time to petition and go through the proper process, because taking products away doesn't just hurt big business, it hurts me and my farm too. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Staley? Thank you.
Dear members of the board, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Emmanuel Dummeres, and I'm speaking on behalf of SQM, which is the producer of natural Chilean nitrate. As you all know, natural Chilean nitrate has been a topic for discussion for many years, with always reason and common sense, contrary to what happened in other regions in the world, referring to, for example, Europe, have inspired the board, leading to the current regulation, and I believe that is a good regulation. It meets both farmer requirements, allowing them to produce locally, even in adverse conditions, and at the same time fully respecting the organic philosophy. Don't forget that natural Chilean nitrate has been around for over 100 years, in times when everything was still organic. And nowadays, it's mainly a byproduct of iodine production, and also in itself it has significant traces of iodine. We agree with the committee that trade equivalency should not be a valid criterion to evaluate an input. A product should be evaluated on its merits, not on political considerations or international trade arguments. Is in the end, is it not at the heart of organic farming to produce locally? We have posted an extensive reply to the recommendation, so there is no time to go in details now. But I would like to point out that we did not really find new arguments in there. One concern that was raised is that farmers may become dependent on natural Chilean nitrates. Now, we don't agree with this, because at the end the product is self-regulating. First of all, there is a current regulation which has the annotation of a maximum 20% use for the crops requirement, so farmers cannot fully rely on it. And secondly, talking to farmers, and I think it was said earlier also, at the end of the day it's not a cheap product per unit of N. So farmers will not use it unless they really need it, and it's critical to the viability. Also, we don't see any good alternatives to give a complementary spike of available nitrogen when it's really needed. A lot of products have been tried, but again, talking to farmers, none of them perform really well, and all of them need nitrogen conversion in the soil. So finally, we want to clarify that the product is not limited to the Western US. Just to share the sales figures of us, we sell in 29 different states. We also collected over 300 farmers' testimonials in 40 states talking in favor of the product. And finally, we also did a petition, and over 540 farmers in 21 states signed that petition to support the product and to support the status quo. So I would like to urge the Crops Committee and the board not to ignore the position of its most important stakeholders and to vote in favor of the status quo. Thank you.
Point of clarification, thank you. On the sales that you show in the map distribution.
Yes.
Is that organic?
Those
organic use or totally?
This product is only sold for organic use, so yes, it's organic use.
Just organic
Yes,
use?
yes. Natural Chilean nitrate is not used in conventional agriculture because, again, cost-wise compared to the alternatives, urea, ammonium nitrate, it's not cost-beneficial.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I know many of you. I know many people in the room. I'm a longtime organic guy. I sat in the chair and been in your chairs here at National Organic Standards Board in the early days. And I want to recognize that you guys have an awesome responsibility here. And so as you look at things and in the grand philosophy of who we are and what we do and the impact that we have on consumer expectations, but also on the realities of life on the ground, that you weigh them very, very carefully. And I want to say that I think sunset was probably a bad term. I wish we'd said we're going to have a sunshine rule that meant we'd shine a bright light on everything every 5 years and say, is it good? Is it not? Is there an alternative? Has it been developed? Is there a wholly natural substitute, or whatever those terms are? But let's look at it in a broad and open way and say, is it important, and does it allow us to continue to convert and convert land to organic agriculture and eliminate and minimize pesticides around the world? It's a very big and important responsibility. I have no dog in the hunt here, so I'm talking from an international trade perspective. I'm a senior trade policy advisor now to the Organic Trade Association, the Foreign Agriculture Service, and work closely with Miles. Actually, the last time I was at the NOSB meeting, Miles and I and Margaret made the presentations on aquatic species, so it's been a while, but it's good to be back. From an international perspective, what the decisions that get made here impact not only domestic trade, but international trade, and it's a significant part of our contribution these days. It's about 8% of all of the organic trade. And there are two things that have come up. One is that lignin sulfonate as a flotation agent. Lignin sulfonate as a binder in fertilizers is, that's sort of decided. But as a flotation agent, it's only used in pairs. We've had Omri research this. We've worked with the Northwest Horticultural Society or Council and with other producers. I would ask you to consider adding the annotation for pairs as a flotation agent for pairs. That would allow everyone who is, right now we're certifying all the way back to the land for carrots and other things that it's not used on. And pairs don't float, and they're very fragile.